What's going on, everybody? This is Livestream 29. Should Westerners fight in Ukraine with their foreign legion? And, I was reading some of the comments leading up to this because you guys are still able to comment when I schedule these events. And I don't know, it seems like there's a lot of people that have the perception that that question is, should we, is our military force, our organized military force, go into Ukraine to fight? And that's not the question we're asking tonight. So if that's what you were thinking, no. The question tonight is private citizens. Should private citizens go and be able to go and fight in Ukraine on their own, behalf? So that's the question we're going to kick around tonight, guys. I got a panel assembled tonight. Go around and introduce them. And then just like always, I will kick it over to the panel and we'll discuss this and kick this around. So first and foremost, got the good doc, Dr. Christopher Larson. He's an accomplished author. He's written many books on small unit tactics. He served in the United States Army. He was an NCO, also served in Korea, 38th parallel, hooking and jabbing with the North Koreans from time to time. So, Doc, appreciate you coming on tonight, brother. All right, next we got Les with Pegasus Test. That is his YouTube channel. Be sure to check that out. He's a wealth of knowledge. His channel is very similar to mine, so if you guys are interested in my stuff, you'll probably like him. He reviews a lot of gear. He goes out in the woods, does some camouflage stuff. He also does some shooting from time to time. He's just a good channel. Check him out, guys. But Les served in the United States Marine Corps in the early 90s, and he's a veteran of Desert Storm. And I'm happy to say and announce that he will be an interviewee on Interview with Warfighters tomorrow night. So be sure to check that out. So, Les, thanks for joining us tonight, brother.
Thanks, Brent.
All right, next we got my good buddy Chad. Chad and I served together in Bravo 123, 2011-2012 time frame in Afghanistan. He's also a Marine veteran of OIF-1. That's the initial invasion in Iraq. Also went back on a second deployment in OIF-2, fighting in the Battle of Fallujah. Chad is studying for his doctorate in military history. He's a wealth of knowledge, always brings an excellent educational perspective to the chat. Chad, thanks for joining us tonight, brother. All right, last but not least, I got the good Bruce at Camp Armament. Big fan. Check out his YouTube channel. He's been my right-hand man on filming many YouTube videos on my channel, and he always brings a wealth of knowledge. He brings the civilian perspective to the group, and that is a badly needed perspective because sometimes we lose sight of stuff. But Bruce is an armorer. He does a lot of Cerakote work. You guys should definitely check out his Instagram handle, Bruce at Camp Armament, and see some of the work he's done there. But then again, he also has a YouTube channel, even though he only posts like one video a year. So be sure to check that out. Bruce, thanks for doing this tonight, brother. All right, guys, that is our panel. So I'm going to open it up to the floor. And usually I say let's go clockwise, but, it's kind of tradition here that we kick it over to Les to kick it off. So, Les, you got the first intro. Take it.
No problem. Well, on our topic tonight, should Westerners go fight in the Ukraine? Sure. Why not? The Western world still is free for a limited time. And if that's your choice, go. By all means, exercise your free will. If you believe in the cause of the Ukraine, go fight. Hell, if you believe in Putin's cause and you want to fight for him, go ahead. It's called freedom. Now, let's talk about what you're going to get into when you get over there. If you check out online what's readily available for the Ukrainian Foreign Legion, for lack of better terms, they're only looking for combat experienced people, or at a minimum people with military training, or police with 5 years experience. They're not taking average Joe Blow. Despite all the videos you see out there on the web that average Joe Blow says is going, they have a vetting process. I know of a person who's going through it right now. They are very much indeed going through what his combat resume is, and it's not just show up. So they do have a vetting process. It appears you go into Poland, you link up with their defense attaché there, and then you get your permission to cross over into Ukraine. And it seems like most people are being directed to a territorial defense unit. This seems to be on an individual level. If you look back in history, when many foreigners go on the fight, they tended to do grouped as units, such as the International Brigades in the Spanish Civil War, or Mad Mike Corps Commando, or Bob Denard's Commando down in the Congo crisis. This is very much an individual thing, which is something that anybody considering doing this should take into account, because you're going to be a fish out of water. If you're an American and you're going, English is not going to be a common language you're going to run into. Unlike the previous examples I stated, the international brigades were all grouped around a country or nationality, so you had a common language thing there. In the Congo, you had Mad Mike Horse, 5th Commando, all speaking English. Bob Denard's 6th Commando, all speaking French. Black Jack Scrame's unit being a mix because he was Belgian. But there was language commonality in each of these previous examples. This one, it seems like as a Westerner, you just get added into a unit and you make do the best you can.
Okay, so many things to say about that, but so first let me say that Les brings up a good point, and let me point out that not all service is combat arms. That there is a time-honored tradition of humanitarian service, whether you do that through a church group or whether you do that as a warrior. I'll point out that in 1914, the U.S. volunteers formed as ambulance corps and went to both France and Italy in support of the Allies in World War I. I said 1914. Remember that we don't show up until 1918. So that's a full 4 years. And of course, one of the most known individuals or celebrities from that was Ernest Hemingway, the American author. So do keep that in mind. Now, so let's separate that to the side. I want to recognize that. And so the question is, should foreigners serve in a foreign legion? Well, that's what foreign legions are for. Okay, so there's an easy one. But what I think we're really asking here is, should American private militia, be that as whole entire units or be that as individuals, should American private militia serve in foreign legions in any conflict, right? Or we could take that one by one, and I'm sure it is probably a case-by-case scenario. Let me point out that the answer is we already have. What are you talking about? There's lots and lots of examples. Let me point out just a few. In 1898, the U.S. volunteers served as Rough Riders in that regiment, led by none other than Theodore Roosevelt, who would later go on to become United States president. In 1916, the U.S. volunteers served in the Lafayette Escadrille as fighter pilots, serving in France. Again, 2 years before the rest of America even got into that war. Also, in 1940, U.S. volunteers served in Flying Tigers in China, 2 years before we even got into that war. And this continues all the way up to 2003, when yours truly was a U.S. volunteer serving in the Coalition Military Advisory Team, CMAT. And I was an advisor in Iraq, a military advisor in Iraq with boots on the ground, serving with the Iraqi infantry. So the answer is there's a long-standing tradition where American citizens have volunteered as whole entire units or as individuals and moved into combat theaters with or without the blessing of our government. So if we ask, should we already have. And I will then personally say that I've been underwhelmed by the EU, NATO, the US, and our allies' commitment to Ukraine. Yes, what we've sent is welcome. Yes, what we sent is good, but it's a drop in the bucket, if you ask me. And so I think that the argument for allowing US militiamen to join foreign legions, or even encouraging it, is a good idea, one that's welcome. That said, and what I hope we address here this evening are some questions that it does raise, because it does raise questions. First and foremost, what impact will our citizens serving in a foreign legions have on our foreign policy? Can we maintain the claim that we are impartial if in fact our citizens are serving as what might be called mercenaries? It's a question, not an answer. We need to explore that. Also, what are the unintended consequences here? For example, are we looking at corporate wars? Is that what we're going to see now, is just corporations hiring their own armies so that they can war against each other in foreign lands? And how do we hold those mercenaries, those foreign corporate armies, accountable for crimes in those foreign lands? So let's get into it.
So, in a free country, you should be able to decide such questions on your own. That's pretty much kind of what everybody else has already stated, and I agree with that. The question is, will there be any repercussions when trying to come home down the road? I don't know. Something to consider. Being a mercenary is probably the second oldest profession, and it isn't going anywhere. I personally have no problem with it, nor do I really agree with the banning of mercenaries by the Geneva Convention. That's maybe controversial opinion. That's something we can certainly discuss. My question is, what if Americans want to go fight for the Russian cause? Should we have a problem with it? I don't know. Les already brought that up. In a free country, maybe you should be allowed to go fight for the other side. I don't know. I think a more interesting question that I wanted to bring up tonight would be the possibility of creating an American Foreign Legion. Everybody wants to come here. Why not get something out of it while assimilating those coming in? Just a thought.
All good points. I agree with the sentiment there. Tell you that Westerners have always volunteered in foreign militaries and in foreign wars for whatever reason. World War II, you had British, those from the Netherlands, French fighting for the Nazis and Nazi divisions, and the French under the SS Charlemagne division were some of the very last to defend the last streets of Berlin before Berlin fell to the Russians. So just to point out, there's a history of Westerners fighting in foreign militaries and in foreign wars, and certainly Americans. We could give example after example after example of Americans that have went from war to war to war, getting experience or lending a hand there, whichever way you want to look at it. As Doc said, there's all sorts of possibilities that Americans could use their experience from medical or other humanitarian needs all the way up to combat. And, a lot of people are saying, well, you should have, combat experience before you go. Well, maybe not. Everybody has to get combat experience somewhere. And I guarantee you that there are some great Americans out there that for one reason or another weren't able to or didn't join the U.S. military, but had they have done so, might have made great soldiers or Marines. So I just think that it's a personal choice for everyone. And they should be allowed and encouraged to make that for themselves. There'll be a lot of different reasons why they choose that. Many reasons will be right. Some reasons will be wrong. But either way, you want to go to a foreign country and fight in a foreign war, have at it.
All right. So my 2 cents on this is, and again, to reiterate, like, this is not proposing American troops enter Ukraine. I don't think anybody's proposing that whatsoever, nor should we. That would definitely start World War III. But the question is here: should American citizens, British citizens, Australians, whoever the hell wants to go and fight on behalf of Ukrainians, or as Bruce said, fight on behalf of the Russians for that matter? I mean, that's the question at hand. And my personal opinion is yes. They should be. If you want to go downrange and fight, you should be able to do that. However, you should know. And the reason this whole topic came up, guys, is I want to say at least 3 individuals reach out to me in private messages via Instagram, telling me that they were about to go over to Ukraine and and asking a question about a certain particular thing. And so that's what popped to my mind. And if you're going to do that, if you're sitting on that boat and you're the kind of individual that wants to go over there to fight specifically, you should know some things. Know that essentially you're on your own. You're not being supported by the U.S. military. Okay, you go over there, you're not guaranteed jack and shit. So I saw one video. I don't know if it's fictitious or not, but the guy saying, oh, they didn't have weapons and they were going to send us straight to Kyiv. Well, you're not talking about a first world nation that you're going over there to fight for. Like, if that is an accurate statement, well, of course, most of the weapons are going to be on the front lines. That's exactly where we're going to be going. But my understanding is that's not what's happening, because what they're asking for are veterans, specifically guys with military experience, combat experience. And it sounds like it's a lot more organized than just, hey, make your way to Ukraine. We're going to give you a rifle and send you to the front. At least that's my perception. So I don't think anybody should be restricted from going over there to fight. However, you guys should know that you're going up against a numerically and technologically superior enemy. They although it appears that Ukraine is holding their own for the matter, the Russians are still a numerically and technologically superior force going against them. That's exactly what you're going into. And, I can't remember last time the U.S. fought I guess Korea. Korea was last time. I mean, you're talking artillery, guys. You're talking air attacks. If you lose your life or limb and you come home to the United States, there is no VA for you. There is no tunnel to towers or, any other Wounded Warrior project that's going to help buy you an elevator and install in your new house that was gifted to you. That's not going to happen. There is no disability rating for you for cash cow for the rest of your life. You literally, if you lose your limb over there, that's it, buddy. So just know that you go over there, you're putting a lot on the line, and you're counting on people you never met, never trained with. There's a lot of unknown. So if you're ready to put yourself into that, by all means. So that's our intro, guys. I'm going to open it up the floor and start kicking this around.
No, all valid, good points everybody has made tonight. This is really, in a way, if you think about an issue that's totally about personal independent freedom. If you feel the cause of Ukraine or Russia, for that matter, aligns with your political and moral ideology, and you feel that you need to fight, go for it. Just make sure you understand the risk when you go. Brent pointed it out. You get wounded over there, there's not going to be any support. And you're going over with no guarantee that the Ukraine is going to win, or that they'll even treat you right when the war is over. You run the real risk and possibility the war is over. Let's say Ukraine convinces Russia to stop, even if they just hold with what they've captured, and the war ends. You're going to be a liability over there. And if Ukraine's going to look at their money to take care of their veterans, you are going to be the last guy in line. And that line's going to be so long, that money will be long gone before it gets to you. So you have to definitely take that into consideration. Another thing to take into consideration is logistics. You're talking about a country that does not have the logistic support of the United States or even a NATO-sized country. You've got to have more than just good soldierly skills. You're probably going to have to figure out how to survive on your own. I'm pretty sure food's not flowing on a regular basis over there. I know in Desert Storm, we had trouble keeping the food flowing to the troops. And Brent, I think you mentioned that a couple times over in Iraq. You were down to 1 MRE a day a couple times. So there's a lot of risk involved, but on a personal level, I can see where someone would think the payoff is worth it. If you read in history, everything I've ever read about the international brigades in Spain is like all those people thought it was worth it. Yeah, I've never read a history of somebody saying, oh my God, it was the biggest mistake I ever made in my life. And same kind of holds true for the Congo. The guys that went there were the adventure seekers of the world. They seem to have found what they were looking for.
Yeah, well, so I'm going to say again that I did do this. And, I did this 20 years ago, or almost 20 years ago anyway. And I was really, very hesitant. It was a group. The group's by the name was MPRI. And they tried to recruit me when I got out of the Army in the 1990s to go to Central Africa. I said no. 2003 rolls around. They recruited me again. This time I said yes for Iraq. And I was greatly hesitant because, I'm thinking the same thing everybody else was thinking at the time. I'm thinking mercenaries, and mercenaries have a mixed bag. They've have some moments in time where they've actually been quite useful and quite successful, and even somewhat honorable. And then they have a lot of dark chapters in history around the world. So I didn't want to get mixed up in that. I thought of many of the things that you guys are discussing here. I also wondered what kind of yahoos I would be teamed up with. And this is one of the most critical things I can say to you. And what really made the decision easier for me. First and foremost, MPRI was vetting like crazy. Like they wound up accepting, I think it was something like 30% special forces, 60% infantry, And then they had 10% of other kind of combat arms that they thought were necessary. All right, mostly like combat engineers and armor and artillery. So we went over and we formed teams. Listen to what I just said. They vetted. You're looking for 4 things here, or it was a no-go to me. It's either vetting or training or both. That's your first thing you should be looking for is, hey, are they vetting or are they training? Okay. And that's what I wanted to see. In MPRI's case, they were vetting. All right. Vetting for the experience they wanted. Second thing you're looking at is equipment. Do you issue me equipment, or do I have to get in country and beg for it? And MPRI was like, no, body armor, everything, we're going to get you all up and running here. So I was like, all right, battle rattle, the whole 9 yards. Third thing is logistics. Who the hell is feeding me? Who's keeping the, all of these things? Where's my medical evac? I wanted everything, not just beans and bullets and batteries and Band-Aids. I wanted more than that. And they were supplying that. And the last thing was leadership. And, that one I went in a little bit blind. It turned out to be, not too bad. Leadership could have been better, but leadership was actually pretty good because we were vetted again. So here's my point. I didn't enter Iraq as an individual. And I know people who did. I saw them there, right? I did not enter Iraq as an individual. I went as an integral unit under MPRI. They formed a couple of teams, and I went in as one of those teams. And so that's my advice to you is to anybody seriously considering this, and that's the advice I've given because like Les and Brent have said, yes, I've had several people contact me here in the last few days. And let me go ahead and put one thing out. So what one of them flat out said was, hey, is One Shepherd appropriate for training for this? I said, yeah, yes, no, maybe. But the big thing is One Shepherd takes 6 weeks to get through. And it's not like 6 weeks all stacked together. And so I was like, by the time I'm done training you, the war's going to be over. And they're like, well, I'll just take 1 week. And I said, no, you won't. I'm not training you up to get you killed. 1 week of coming out here and meeting the guys and starting to learn the ropes is not enough. Not even close to enough. Furthermore, Ukraine won't accept you on, well, I have 1 week of One Shepherd under my belt. Not enough. So, and I would honestly say, let me add that if I were going to, let's say someone gave One Shepherd a contract and said, hey, come over here to Poland and train up our Foreign Legion, it still wouldn't just be 1 week or 3 or 6 weeks, guys. I would add specific training that's unique to that war, specific. And so it would be substantially longer than 6 weeks, even then. Well, and that's ultimately what I wound up telling these fellas is, hey, go look for a training program and a recruiting program that promises these 4 things: training, equipment, logistics, and leadership. Because if you enter the war without that, man, you're in a serious crapshoot.
Yeah, I wanted to tag a question there that somebody put in the comments. Says, why does Ukraine want vets when they're arming civilians with no training in their society? Very simple. Ukraine's in a fight for survival. And the people are right there, and they're well motivated because that citizen you hand that AK to that's going to go down the street and use it, he may not be defending Ukraine. He's defending his house. He's defending his family. And he's going to be well motivated and stuff. The other thing, the Ukraine, a whole bunch of foreigners pouring into their borders right now is just as big a problem as Russians pouring in. And so, yeah, they definitely want to vet because one of the things, if people just start showing up in the Ukraine with nothing but a backpack full of enthusiasm, you're just creating a liability. They don't have the time or the resources to train you yet. But if you come in there as a Marine who's done enlistments, got a combat tour of duty under his belt and specialized training, they can use you right away.
Let's not forget that Ukraine didn't start this fight 5 weeks ago. Ukraine's been fighting since Obama was president, and they had foreign volunteers there then, and there's plenty of videos of them. The Ukrainians were quite proud whenever they had foreign volunteers. I believe they had an older gentleman from Texas. I say older, he's probably in his 50s, Sorry, Doc. But he was out there with the rest of them. They trained him up. I suppose he learned the language on the fly, or maybe he already knew it, which I agree is would be one of the biggest downfalls for any Westerner going to Ukraine, is not knowing the language. Could you imagine being in a life or death situation every day and not being able to communicate verbally? That would be a challenge. But they've been doing this for a long time, and as far as they seem to welcome them. They seem to like them, appreciate the sentiment. But and we're not talking about small skirmishes. We're talking about full out artillery back and forth battles. Just hop on YouTube and look up footage from the Donetsk airport battles. There's been a couple of them where the airport changed hands. It was a sort of a centerpiece for both sides, the Russian separatists and the Ukrainians, and they fought over that and went back and forth. And both sides lost a tremendous amount of men there, and it was absolutely devastating fights. And this was a couple of years ago, and since then they formed lines and held those lines until now. Russia's decided that they're going to get involved directly, not indirectly, and start this thing up to be hot again. But let's not forget that this isn't a brand new war for Ukraine, and it's not a brand new war for foreigners to be involved in it, helping them either.
Yeah, I want to point out, I just read a comment that sparked this memory in my head here. If you're going over there to fight another war for another country that you don't live in, like you need to make sure you have everything in line back here in the States. If you have a family, you have a wife and kids, you got no business leaving them on their own to go overseas and fight another country's war. That is just irresponsible and ridiculous. With that being said, the comment I saw was referring to James Yeager. So my understanding is James went over there to do training. So he's training people. He also potentially is suffering from ALS. So I would absolutely give him an exception. And it looks to me like he has his life in order, right? His wife is running his business for him. So if there was a candidate to go over there and specifically do what he's doing, which my understanding is training, he would be the ideal type of candidate to do so. But if you're just, Joe Blow and you got a wife and kids and you're working a normal job and like you quit your job to go overseas to fight in Ukraine like that, and you're leaving your wife and kids hanging like that, you are not the prime applicant in my book, nor should you even be considering doing something like that.
So I got to say how many people I saw come into Iraq, and they would be there 5 days. I mean, it was I don't want to say it was a majority. It wasn't, but it was a significant minority. Some of them lasted 3 months, but most didn't. They'd last just a few days, take a look around, get shot at, get mortared, and say, what the hell? And they would just bolt. I don't know. I don't know where their heart or their mind was, but as you said, Brent, they didn't have their house in order. I think they just thought, hey, this will be a quick buck. And then they came and they saw, frankly, how terrible the situation was because it was pretty desperate. And they bolted. And at first it surprised me. I was like, wait, what? But, when you see people that's Green Berets. I'm talking like, wow, these guys are retired special forces, young studs, and still fairly young studs, 40 years old. And they get on the ground, look around and say, oh, hell no. And they're gone. They're gone in a week, 2 weeks, very commonly. And I'm like, okay, well, it actually didn't hurt morale. We just went, yeah, he was kidding himself. He had this Hollywood notion of I'm a tough guy and got there and they just walk away.
What you got, Chad? I saw you put up an article.
Yeah, it was just what Doc was talking about. Just an individual who, like he said, just took a little fire and decided that enough was enough for him. So I'm sure that's happening quite a bit. I just want to say Ukraine is doing a good job of prolonging the war and stalling Russian advances right now. Now, of course, that could change at any moment. I'm not sure how much difference foreigners are actually making right now. That would be above my pay grade. I agree with Doc. There needs to be a vetting process. I think that's why organizations like the French Foreign Legion are successful. The vetting process is basic training to become a legionnaire. I'm not sure Ukraine has the time or resources to fully vet like that right now. Maybe a better allocation of foreign resources is looking at the possibility of a post-war occupation, maybe setting up a foreign legion in Poland or something like that, another friendly country where they can actually train and vet a little further and maybe be more effective down the road. I don't know. It's a difficult question to ask.
No, I think you're right, Chad. The point is that in order to train forces, you need some kind of sanctuary. We saw that in Lviv, the military compound outside of there. I know that's where the U.S. forces had used for quite a few years training Ukrainian forces. And from what I understand, take this with a grain of salt, they were training foreign forces. The 35 dead, the 140 wounded were predominantly foreign military, foreign legionnaires. And so because they decided, yeah, this is far enough west, we don't need a sanctuary, we can just openly train these guys here. And Russia came and said, no, you can't. So this is the point that, the employment, the training of foreign legions is traditionally been viewed as something of a special operations, falling under that purview. And when you look at why the Jedburghs of World War II that gave rise to our modern day Green Beret, you look at what they were doing. It was very much special operations, and it was force multiplier. To what avail? Well, all sorts of things, Chad. I mean, not the least of which is the political win of having foreign legions flocking to your side of the fight, right? So that's propaganda win right there. But I think it actually could potentially come into, foreign legions, like I said, they've had some success and they've had their failures as well. But the big thing right now for me is going, okay, where's your sanctuary? Where are you training these guys up for 8 to 10 weeks straight, and then sending them in as cohort units that, by the way, speak the same language, So, yeah. And we did this. We did this in our wars, too. Of course, most notoriously, we did this in our revolution, our Civil War, our revolution for independence. All sides did it, by the way, not just the patriot sides. We had the French backing us, and we hired Germans and Prussians to come help us, and the Brits hired, Hessians to come help them. And this is a very common thing. I think a lot of people don't know this piece of history and think it's ancient. Oh, the Romans did that. No, we've done that in every war we fought in America. Yeah.
Hey, Doc, you want to answer that question? You're muted.
Would I go fight if they gave out sex robots? Hell yeah. I mean, I don't know how much fighting I'd be doing. I'd just be stealing everybody else's sex robots. But the point is, I would be in Ukraine fighting. Give the Russians the sex robots and watch the Ukrainians overrun the Russians.
Brilliant.
Well, I think another thing to point out, because I saw earlier another comment was talking about like every able-bodied man is getting conscripted in Ukraine, but there's a difference in arming civilian populace to defend the city and taking on foreign fighters to fight with the front lines, with the frontline units. There's a big difference there, and the point I was making, and this was this guy's counterpoint, was that the Russians don't have numerical superiority because you have all these males that were conscripted. Well, those aren't trained males. I mean, it's like you might as well do human suicide, freaking wave attacks, if you're going to use that logic. Those conscripted males and the handing out of rifles to civilians was to defend those cities, making every inch of soil in those cities unobtainable by the enemy. But those people aren't being handed rifles and then being pushed to the front lines to go fight. At least that's not my understanding. So there is a numerical superiority with the Russians. They have more trained warfighters on the front lines than the Ukrainians. So you're going into this fight knowing that you're going up to a numerically superior enemy and a technologically superior enemy. They have more artillery. They have more HIMARS rockets. They have, air, fast movers and helicopters and UAVs and everything else that we're seeing on YouTube, videos and all this great stuff that Ukraine's doing. The Russians have the exact same things. We're just not seeing the videos because the Russians ain't plastering them all over YouTube.
Or they are, and they're getting censored because we want our side to have the propaganda. So we've shut down Russian propaganda. I'm sure there's plenty of Russian propaganda out there, and for the pro-Russian areas and internets, they're getting their say in. But you're absolutely right. Number one is that everything you see the Ukrainians doing, okay, so the Russians have that fourfold. And that's what's not being shared. And I don't blame the Ukrainians. Why should the Ukrainians say, oh, the Russians are kicking our butt and we're losing? That doesn't serve their purpose. So they're not going to say that, and they shouldn't say that. So, propaganda is part of the information war and part of PSYOPs. I get all that. I think the other thing is when everybody says, well, they're handing out weapons, they're handing out, I don't care. I don't care whether they're handing out 38 revolvers or Kalashnikovs or belt-fed machine guns to civilians. It is what Brent said. You're arming a militia, a militia group. And once again, there seems to be this willing confusion about what a militia is and what its primary mission is. And again, every time I say this, I have to backpedal and say, yes, there have been historic examples of militia units doing great work on the front line, either heroic defenses or even brilliant raids and ambushes and offensive action. There are those very, very rare examples of that. Now, here's where militia really serve where we win. Where we win with militia is supporting roles. They serve in combat support, combat service support. So if you're thinking intelligence gathering, surveillance, passing information, bingo. If you think, evacuation of downed pilots to friendly lines, bingo. If you're thinking, they're helping with medical aid and rescue and stuff like this, yes, you're getting it. This is the stuff of militia, and it's their primary mission. The primary mission of militia is not to serve on the front line in either a defensive or offensive capability. And this is the way that frankly, that Ukraine is trying to leverage their militia, which is clever and smart. It's bold. It's a bold move. It's a bold move because frankly, it justifies Russia's targeting of citizens. So it is a very bold, dangerous move, but it's also one that I think is a smart move in this case. It helps with a total effort to deny the Russians into and dominance over Ukraine. So I get all that, but again, you're misunderstanding what militia are. And so when Brent says, hey, there are more trained professional Russian frontline fighters than trained professional frontline Ukrainian fighters, that's what he means. When you really look at who's killing tanks, these aren't the teacher from your 6th grade math class. That's not who's doing it. And I know. Everybody grabs that one guy. There's that one guy, that one outlier, 1 in 200,000, and they go, look at this one. And I'm like, okay, he's 1 of 200,000. So we grab that story, and it's a heroic story, and we all love it. We all do. It's not reality, but then we pretend that is.
I got a question for Les. Since you have a logistics company, you would probably be the subject matter expert here. Let's say all the planets align. You are 100% perfect candidate to go join the Ukrainian Foreign Legion, and you want to go over there. What things are you able to take? Because we obviously know that you probably can't take your own preferred rifle overseas, but there's other things that you probably could take, like, I don't know, assuming that you're going to get issued some sort of Kalashnikov, you could take a handguard with Picatinny mounts on it to mount certain optics or PEX, whatever the case may be. So my question to you, Les, is what could you take in terms of like, weapon optics, night vision, PEX, stuff like that might be regulated Could you answer that question?
Yes, actually, I get that question asked several times a day, as a matter of fact. You can take your body armor. Let's get that out of the way. You are allowed to take body armor. An individual takes it. You're going to take some extra for your buddies. The government wants to talk to you and wants to see some paper to back that up. Night vision, get a license from the State Department. Just because you're gung-ho, willing to go to fight the war, export violation, ITAR. Fines start at $1 million. You want to take your favorite flashlight? Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. You want to take your holosun? You're in a gray area. But, probably be okay. Things like anything IR, night vision related is all regulated and it's heavily controlled. And I guarantee you a nice site of a set of PVS 14s or PVS 31s that you can go buy online are heavily regulated, and probably no one will sell them to you if they find out you're going over. As to the comment here, level 4 plates are ITAR regulated. As I said, yes, they are. If you're shipping in bulk, yes, level 4, even level 3 is heavily regulated by ITAR. Your 3A and lower body armors are regulated by the Commerce Department, the EAR. It's all everywhere, but there are exceptions for one person to take their personal set. That's how you see all the news organizations over there. And specifically, that law comes from the fact that the U.S. government didn't want to be in the position of persecuting a lot of parents after the invasion of Iraq when they sent body armor to their children who were serving. So there is an exception for it. But like I said, take your set, you're fine. You want to take a couple sets for buddies, now you're in trouble. And I can tell you, gentlemen, no matter how great your cause is, going to jail for an ITAR violation is not worth it. The BIS does not fuck around.
Sure. Okay. So that kind of segues into something I did want to talk about, and that is, what's the culpability of the United States government? Look, personally, I think we all on this panel would agree that the United States government should give a carte blanche and say, okay, you're heading to your destination. Show me your ticket. It's, Ukraine or whatever it is. And so you're taking your rifle, your night vision, all of these ITAR, basically that's what it comes down to, ITAR regulated items. And I think if you can show credibly that that is where I'm going, our government should be able to say, okay, then you're leaving with it. Now, they may say you can't come back with it. They may have certain rules like that, but they can say, yeah, you can leave with it as long as certain things are met. Like I said, you show that you have a ticket to either Poland, Romania, or Ukraine, and a welcome letter, right? That's just a Ukrainian welcome letter or Poland welcome letter. So something like this. I don't mean to go too much into the weeds there, but here's where the problems start. Think of like the Swiss. The Swiss were the mercenaries to recruit for hundreds and hundreds of years. All right. Of course, they weren't getting on an airplane, and they weren't even getting on a boat. They were, in most cases, just walking to the war that they were being hired to. But they were hired as whole entire units, and they deployed then as whole entire units. And you could say, well, things were simpler back then. Maybe they were because, weapons weren't as regulated. They were regulated, but they weren't as regulated as they are today. So this is what I'm saying. If the federal government comes out and says, yeah, we're just turning a blind eye here. Show me this. Yeah, fine. You're fine. Get out. I think that would be very, very welcomed. But at some point, when do you say neutral Switzerland is no longer neutral because it's dispatching its mercenaries? And when would that be true for America? And this is what I'm saying. Like, at what point are our private citizens essentially, by default, creating foreign policy for us as a nation? And I think that might be the one area there that gives us cause to say, wow, what if we dispatched 100,000 U.S. volunteers to Ukraine? 100,000 militia. Just let's grab it in magnitude, right? Does that mean that America has now become a legitimate target for Russian aggression? I don't know. I think we have to be fair and explore that.
Well, if we could backtrack just a minute for all these questions about people taking stuff over. Let's look in just normal times what it takes for me to take my weapons to go to Finland to shoot in a competition. Okay. I have to give power of attorney to someone in Finland to go represent me with the Finnish police to get me a permit that allows me to possess the weapons while I'm in Finland. And it allows me to import these same weapons. I have to then apply to the Commerce Department to get a temporary export license. That I have to go down to the Finnish embassy and get covered in stamps and everything. That goes back to the Finnish police. So, and all I'm doing is sending my firearms ahead of me as cargo, just so I can have the privileges when I get there, picking them up, shooting the competition, giving them back to my agent to be shipped back here to the United States. It's a long process. I have to plan for it months in advance. Everybody's always shocked because I'll get people who want to go to these same competitions and call me up the week before the competition. Go, can you get my weapon there? I'm like, nope. Should have thought of this 90 days ago. That's the process in peacetime when everything's running smoothly. Now that part of Europe is in a wartime situation. The whole transportation system's jacked.
Yeah.
And the governments do not want to have large numbers of armed people coursing through their borders. So if anything, they're going to tighten up on what weapons are coming in. I already have established relationships shipping in weapons to companies in Eastern Europe, and I've had for years. And it's whether they have government contracts or they're just regular weapons to resell to their citizenry. All those shipments are getting highly inspected now. They're taking all kinds of delays. And I'm getting all kinds of questions from not only our government, but the recipient governments too, backing up.
Yeah,
you sending it to.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what I was saying about going as a unit, because if you go as a unit, let's say you go as 200 guys, right? That's essentially what we did. Two 100-man groups is what I deployed as. And when you do that, you have somebody sitting there working with the receiving country, with the transportation countries. We flew into Germany, to Frankfurt or London. I flew into London, and we had to so what I'm saying is all of that stuff has to be agreed, even in your layover countries, right? You're laying over in Frankfurt. You're laying over in London. So that had to be agreed upon. And if we were doing this in onesies and twosies, oh my God, the nightmare. But when you deploy as an entire integral unit, then all of that is done at, literally at a corporate level, negotiating with multiple countries. And so it's just one more thing of, who would want to try to do this individually, show up and go, well, I got nothing here because I couldn't get all of my ITARS regulations done. Does someone have food, water, a bunk, and beans and bullets and stuff like that? Wow, what a terrible, terrible place to be.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you about my brother. My brother is a Marine, and when he first went to Iraq, they went through Kuwait, and when they spent months here getting Conex crates loaded with all their equipment, everything that they needed for their whole unit to move over there. When they get there, nobody can find their equipment. It's all lost. All their heavy equipment, all their trucks. They ended up borrowing trucks from a German unit. And so my brother was like, hey, I'm doing great riding around in Mercedes. Like, what are you talking about? They used German equipment, hand-me-down stuff, until finally their equipment caught up with them. I see Brent smiling. This story has probably went past his ears before with some other Marine units. And guys, we're talking about the U.S. military with all of their financial backing and all of their capabilities. If you are married to your gear and you're thinking about going to a foreign country to fight like Ukraine, don't even go. Don't waste your time. Because even if you can get it there through some miracle, the likelihood that on your track going from Poland to Kyiv, that someone else is going to like that gear better than you along the way is pretty high. And probably by the time you get there, you've given away your plate carrier, you've given away your optics, you've given away your weapon. And by the time you get to Kyiv, you're wearing what every other swinging dick in Kyiv is wearing if you've got it. You've got an AK that's rusty and no optics. You've got some dirty old winter clothes, if you're lucky, an old pair of boots, and a pat on the butt. That's just the way, that's just reality. And I say this because I tell the same thing to everybody in this country. Don't get married to your weapon here in this country. It's great if you've got your kit set up on your gear cross in the back room and you're ready to go. And if someone breaks into your house, you might have the opportunity to use that. But if a real war were to break out in this country, forget about it. The chances of you being able to keep that and supply that, depending on how long you survive, the longer you survive, the less likely you are to have that. Tank crews go from tank to tank to tank. Aircraft crews go from aircraft to aircraft to aircraft, and infantrymen will get issued new weapons and new equipment and pick up stuff all along the way. It's very rare that someone finishes a war with the shit that they started the war with if they make it through. So I just tell you guys one more thing, and I know One Shepherd sort of preaches this. It's another reason not to learn just one platform of firearms. Learn all the major platforms, be proficient with all of them, so that when you get to Ukraine and someone stopped you from taking your AR over there, you can pick up a Kalashnikov and get it to run.
Question is, can you expand your prison wallet big enough to fit a PVS 14 and a PEC in it?
Well, I know I can, but I can't speak for the rest of you guys.
Let's talk about this is an interesting dialogue we got going here. So let's say again you are going over there and you are going to take body armor. So my opinion on this would be, in the States particularly, we see a lot of guys, they just run plate carrier. Like literally it's 2 plates, a plate on the front and a plate in the back. There's no additional protection. Well, you're going into a real war, and this is not essentially a war of mobility. Whereas, like in Afghanistan, for instance, we did a lot of foot patrols, and wearing all that body armor was very fatiguing, and we had to come up with the scalable plate carrier. I would argue that if you were going to fight in Ukraine, you need a flak. You need a flak with plates. The cool kid plate carrier that you see every major gun channel sporting is not the ideal body armor for a war that involves artillery, rocket systems, enemy air assets. So I would argue that you would need to look at some sort of flak system. I'm not talking about the big MTV modular tactical vest, which was the most god-awful flak that the Marine Corps ever came out with. But the flak that we have right now, they call it a plate carrier, but it's a excellent piece of gear. It's excellent body armor. It does provide fragmentation protection. In addition, you can insert SAPI plates in the front, the back, and side if need be, if mission requires. But I would argue that you need something like that, as opposed to these cool kid plate carriers that don't offer any protection from fragmentation. Thoughts?
I would totally agree with you, Brent.
Kevlar's.
Go ahead, Bruce.
I think it could depend somewhat on the mission. I think it could depend on a few factors. And I have no doubt Brent would load up in the big flat kit and take off out there, no problem. You put that on me, yeah, I'm going to be able to get from the latrine to the bunker. That's about as far as I'm going to be able to go in a full kit of gear like that before I say, F this, I'm wore out, I'm tired. I mean, I'm old and I'm not in the best of shape. So I think that would, a personal decision for me, and it's one that I made over really the last few years, is that I probably would forgo body armor, understanding the risk involved, but trade off the body armor for a little bit more agility and a little bit more distance that I can carry. And that's just me being honest. If this was 20 years ago, I would have said what Brent just said, but I'm in a different physical condition now. And a lot of people fighting in Ukraine may also be in my situation. I can tell you for a fact, I see a lot of footage of guys on the front lines fighting in Ukraine, and a lot of them are not wearing body armor. They seem to all have helmets, but not all of them have vests, plate carriers, or flaks, or anything else. So you also got temperature ranges to think about. It can be super hot, it can be super cold, and depending on what's going on there, that may also limit your ability to wear body armor, and depend on your ability to get water. I mean, I just think there's a lot of factors there that are sort of outside of big U.S. Army's blanket that are special considerations when you're fighting in a country like that with not really good logistical support, maybe not good sources for clean water, and maybe in units where I sort of think of like our guys in Vietnam, right? Marines always wore flaks because they were told to. Army almost never wore them because they weren't made to wear them. And when you look at guys like our LRP teams or our SEALs or Special Forces, none of them wore them ever because they may be running 15 miles for their life through the jungle in the heat. And none of them wore them because the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. So again, I think it's also sort of mission specific as well.
Yes.
You know, and you have to take that into consideration as to what you're going to be doing there. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Right. I mean, okay, hold on, guys. We have to be careful of taking anecdotal evidence and saying, let me exaggerate it to the point of stupidity, but saying, well, I didn't see anybody wearing 6 socks, so I don't want to take 6 pairs of socks. Well, no, that's because under these circumstances, you don't wear 6 pairs of socks at one time. All right. So, but that doesn't mean it's a bad idea to take many different pairs of socks into a combat theater with you. I'd say the same thing with body armor or virtually any kind of mission specific gear. When you see someone walking around without body armor, it's fairly safe to assume one of 2 things. One, they lack the logistics and haven't been issued body armor. It's not that I don't want it. It's that they don't have it. Or 2, they have it. They absolutely have been issued it. But the mission that they're having to do when that cameraman snapped a photograph was not conducive to body armor. And this is the other thing. I mean, you mentioned it, Bruce, that there tends to be inside the big Army and big Marine Corps a one-size-fits-all solution. So every Marine in Vietnam will wear body armor always while taking a poop, taking a shower, on a jungle patrol, whereas the Army said, no, we're going to use it when you're on fire bases, when you're on bases that are known to take an inordinate amount of indirect fire from the enemy. And you know what? You really don't. It's like one of those things about don't stick your hand out the window. We all love to stick our hand out of the window. And then your mom says, don't stick your hand out of the window while you're going through a tunnel. And you're like, ew, that makes sense to me. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. So when you get on a base that's getting mortared twice a day and people say, hey, dude, walk around with your body armor, there's only so many sucking chest wounds you can see before you go, shit, I'm putting this stuff on tight. So we wore it there. But then when I'm walking a 12-kilometer 3-day hump in the A Shaw Valley where the enemy doesn't even know I'm there, much less target us for indirect artillery, that's when you go, there's no, like you said, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Don't take it there. But I'll tell you, what I'm trying to say is if I deployed to Ukraine, I would take every piece of flak, a carrier, just in case I'm doing that. I would take 4 different plates, the side plates. I'd take all of it with me and keep it close at hand because while I can always take it off if a mission allows me to do that, when you want it, you want it. And I say, look at the town, look at the city of Mariupol. I know IEDs. I'm not belittling the danger, the wickedness, and the lethality of an IED. But I'm saying, look at the destruction of an IED. And I mean big ones, vehicle-borne IEDs. Look at that destruction. You go, oh my God, that is just wicked. That's pretty powerful. Now look at Mariupol. You see the difference what artillery barrage, artillery bombardment does from an IED? An IED might reduce a vehicle. An IED might reduce part of a building. Artillery barrage destroys entire cities. You're not talking about the same thing, guys. Our lessons from Afghanistan and Iraq, some of them are carry over and apply here. Some of them truly do. War is war at its very foundation. But you know what? Counterinsurgency and near peer, and this is a peer fight between Ukraine and Russia. This is a peer fight. And oh my God, war looks really, really different now. So the idea of going into it without a flak vest, I'd say a flak vest is more important than your hard plates. Seriously. Think about Mariupol. You think about Mariupol and you go, oh yeah, hard plates, really aren't going to do you too much in an artillery bombardment.
Absolutely. And if you look at U.S. history from when the flak jacket was invented in the 1950s up through Vietnam to Pascat, which Doc and I are familiar with and stuff, it was all about stopping artillery fragments. And I think by the time they got to Pasket, they'd really epitomized it. And because far as I know, nobody wearing a Pasket vest has died with a fragmentation preventing it stuff. I have seen a horrible case in training where a fragment from mortar round went under the armpit and did horrible things to the occupant. But nothing got through his vest. So yeah, I mean, if you go over with Pasket level armor, that's a good thing. It's a good trade-off between mobility and protection. The part it doesn't do is protect you against rifle rounds. It actually will protect you against pistol rounds. It says no, but there's a lot of evidence out there on the web that, yeah, it'll stop a 9mm. Is it going to stop AK or 5.56? No, it's not. And the government's always acknowledged that, because in Desert Storm, we had, all of us were issued Paskets. As air crew, we got a bullet bouncer to put on over it. Now, it was just a steel plate bullet bouncer. I think it was made in Vietnam time frame. But yeah, we're standing in a helicopter. We're not doing anything ultra physical except standing behind a machine gun in a helicopter. So yeah, we could put on the ballistic vest. They even gave us the protective underwear thing, which made you look like you're wearing an adult diaper. But you're also standing behind a gun in a helicopter. Who cares at that point?
I've always been a proponent of mission specific. All right, mission dictates. But you got to think, if you're a volunteer going to Ukraine, what are you likely going to be doing? Like, you're not going to be doing special forces raids behind Russian lines. Like, they're not going to do that. You're not the Ukrainian special forces. You're going to be front
artillery
line.
Is going to be the thing that you're going to be protecting against.
You're going to be frontline ground pounder in a fighting position, hooking and jabbing with Russian grunts. And that's why I said, like, that's what you need, or that's what you should aspire to. And this was the flak I'm talking about. Look at this, provides pretty good protection, although it doesn't provide neck protection like many, past flaks provided. But I feel like this is a good balance between mobility and protection. And even you, Bruce, I think could support that.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm probably the outlier where I place a value on my life maybe a little less than most people. I was just one of those strange guys that didn't think I'd make it past 25. And when I did, I was like, wow, every day's truly a blessing. So and plus I'm Pentecostal, so I'm a little bit weird like that. But so I may not be the best example. I would certainly agree that wearing body armor will increase the likelihood of your survivability in the case that you're shot, take a hand grenade or artillery round. I think artillery is particularly important in the context of this war. A piece of shrapnel, in your noggin or in your chest could easily be stopped by modern day body armor, and definitely mean the difference between you dying and you walking away with a cool looking hole in your helmet, and not another real scratch on you. But for me, I think once I've worn that thing for a couple of days, I don't know, we'll see, when that artillery strike hits, I definitely want to crawl inside it, be as small as I could and wrap my body in it. But if I'm having to move very far, I think I'd be the last guy in the line, and I never, ever want to be the last guy in the line. That's always been my goal.
What's your 2 cents, Chad? You've been quiet.
Yeah, I really don't have much to add on that. I'm just waiting for the next question here. So, like everybody said, artillery is a big issue. You're obviously going to need some type of protection from flak. It makes sense to me. Yeah, I can't really add anything else to that. Makes sense.
Chad, what's the piece of gear that we haven't mentioned? What's like the thing that you're like, yeah, I'm not going without an X? What is that?
Well, in the Marine Corps, we always train to do a lot with less. UWHIL Marines bitch constantly about how the Army has all the high-tech shit and we get all the hand-me-downs. So, our saying, if you will, is Semper Gumby, always flexible. I really don't care. You give me a Rambo knife, I'll go kill as many Russians as I can. I really don't care what you give me. I will make do the best I can with it. That's kind of the attitude I have. If I were going to Ukraine, I would probably just take the clothes on my back, and that's it. I wouldn't try to take my own weapon system because, like you guys said, I probably wouldn't be coming back with it. So that's just my 2 cents.
And I want to let me add this to what Doc said earlier. I know, Doc, you're talking about yourself looking at foreign military involvement, where you're looking for a few key things to ensure that the support's there that you would need to make you feel comfortable that you would have an increased chance of survivability and support. Guys, don't look for that in Ukraine. I imagine they would promise you anything. There's probably a shiny red Ferrari in Kyiv with your name on it if you just get there. And then when you get there, you'll magically find out it's not there. It's sort of like signing a contract with the U.S. military as to what your future is going to look like. I doubt there's ever been a soldier or Marine whose future looked exactly like what their recruiter promised them it would look like. So I certainly wouldn't trust the Ukrainians with that. The right mindset to have is the mindset that Chad just laid out, which is just get me there and I'll fight with whatever you've got, whatever's available. If it's a crowbar, we'll head after that BMP with a crowbar. That's all I got to say on that.
I mean, there's something I could respond there. I mean, one thing I was going to bring up was like, a good IFAC with a tourniquet. I don't think I'd deploy without an IFAC and a tourniquet because I wouldn't expect to receive a decent one when I got there. So I'd have a couple or few tourniquets in that IFAC. That's one thing. The other thing, this is going to sound a little out of left field, but I'll back it up. And that is, I'd go with a pro mask. I'd be looking at a military grade protective mask, chemical protection. And when we went to Iraq, we all were issued one and we all carried it and we trained on it even before deploying. At Fort Benning, but we all went to Fort Benning and got issued gear and they trained us on the newest, latest, greatest pro mask. And so I'm like, one of those things you're like, I'm going to throw it in my, Foot Locker or in my duffel bag and I won't see that again. Probably right, but know where it is because God knows if you need it, no one's going to hand you an extra one. So that would be another thing that I would absolutely insist on taking. And so, again, I keep saying this because it's my singular experience is go with a unit, because what you just said, Bruce, is exactly what happened to us. Hey, there's a Ferrari waiting for you. You guys, we're going to get you into Iraq. This is what we were told. We're going to get you into Iraq. We're going to embed you into a huge LSA that is, just this huge base. You're going to be put there, and we're going to move. We're going to put you like in buildings, and we're going to have troops moving to you, and we're going to take you're going to completely embedded inside the United States military, all logistics taken care of. We got into Bayat, Baghdad airport. They sent us off to the Iranian border, and those buildings didn't have windows or doors. You say, oh, well, they have electricity or water. They didn't have anything. They were just bombed out buildings. And we were putting up like shelter halves, sort of like, to keep us out of the sun. And they said, oh, we're going to get all this stuff up to you. And it gradually came in over months, the food alone. We basically starved for the first 90 days. They flew in Black Hawks. They flew in water, contaminated water, and MREs. And I lived off of contaminated water and MREs for the first 90 days because every time they tried to send, we were out in the middle of nowhere, man. And every time they tried to send a convoy, KBR tried to send they would get ambushed. People would get killed, get blown up, and they're just like, well, we're not going to feed you. So there was none of that shit till the 6-month mark. I did a year tour. That stuff came in at the halfway through. Like I said, emaciated. My tiny ass little 170 pound frame, or about 175 pounds when I went real quickly to about 155 pounds and just a skeleton. We all were. We were existing because your body shuts down on MREs. In case you don't know that, it's chemicals. And after a while, within about 2 weeks, my personal flavor was I could eat the shelf life bread and the apple jelly once in a while. I could choke down a peanut butter. And so that's what I was living on for the next 10 weeks was apple jelly and shelf life bread and contaminated water. Man, it was disgusting. And we all lost incredible amount of weight, but we did our job. So what? Combat, you tend to lose weight anyway. And we did our job. And then finally, when they, after 90 days of this crap, we said, how are you going to feed us? And they said, I'm not joking. They said, oh, forage. Like, forage for food? Like, what? What is this, 1775? And we're at Valley Forge with General Washington? And they flew out Iraqi money like 2 days later on a Black Hawk, kicked out boxes of dinar and said, forage. And we started going into the villages around us. And sure enough, that's who started feeding us. For the next 90 days, I ate goat and camel and fresh fruits and vegetables. It was wonderful. I'm eating, breads that's cooked on a flat stone, still got bugs in the side of it. And I was so thankful to have that, man. I was like, this stuff's great. We had like goat yogurt. I was so happy to have real food. I'm telling you what. And that's who fed us for the next 90 days. So when I say, go as a unit, I went in as a unit and they still starved us for 90 days.
Now, one of the things I would recommend that you take if you're going over there, regardless of your role, whether it's fighting or humanitarian, is probably some very good water purification tabs, and lots of them. I imagine the first thing waiting on you in Ukraine is a good old case of dysentery, and that's just a fantastic way to start your service in any country. So I think that probably finding clean water in any country that's going through any type of warring conflict may be a challenge, and no guarantee.
Seriously, now that you mention that, we brought Imodium for that reason. We did not bring enough, iodine tablets and filters. We did not bring anywhere near enough. And so we did. The water was bad, but you know what? It was when they brought one in, they brought in some water and it had some fuel mixed into it. And then we all got sick as a dog. But Imodium, I think probably earnestly, not even making this up, it probably saved our life. Because getting diarrhea in the desert, you're losing too much water. And so, yeah. There's one I hadn't think about. In your IFAC, yes, probably the two things that are going to save your life: Imodium and tourniquets. And both of them shut down fluid loss. Yeah.
Hey, Les, Doc brought up some great points with the gas mask and IFAC, or any of the contents in IFAC or the gas mask, or any of those restricted for travel or exporting or anything. You're muted.
IFAC, no, there's nothing really regulated. Under certain cases, certain IFACs, first aid kits you can buy commercially, are actually regulated dangerous goods, but those are pretty rare. As far as gas masks, it's questionable there. Under the EAR, it depends on destination country.
On that point, I remember towards the end of OIF1, I was getting ready to retrograde back. I had an Iraqi army gas mask that I picked up. And they would let me keep the gas mask, but the filter had to be shit canned. They wouldn't let me send that home.
You did better than we did. Any of the Iraqi gear we tried to bring back, they confiscated from us. I mean, they were absolutely ruthless about it.
Yeah, I lost a bayonet. I was pretty pissed about it.
Yeah,
I almost wonder would the filters be something you'd rather take than the mask? I mean, most of those masks, well, since World War II, they're all copies of the German World War II gas mask filter. The filters that we use today are the same, that they're interchangeable with almost every Western and even Russian and Ukrainian gas mask, with probably the exception of the Finns. But I think that, sorry, Les, but I think that even the Finnish gas masks have an adapter so that you can make those fit. I wonder if maybe the filters would be more valuable than the mask itself.
So I haven't pulled
NATO standard would apply. If you take a NATO standard mask, the filters are all fit across. But I'm not sure what standard Ukraine's operating on, to be honest.
I believe most of the Russian masks, and I could be wrong, but Russian masks made from 1970s, so now use that same filter.
Possible. Hey, real quick, if I could divert, and one of the comments here is, person said, just file an AES and you're fine. I think you have a misunderstanding of what AES means and what it stands for. AES is the Automated Export System, and it just allows you to electronically file a shipper's export declaration. And that's how you report to the government what you export from the United States when it's over a value of $2,500. You have to still go through your ITAR or your BIS requirements and report on the value. You can send a small item out of the United States, if it's under $2,500, you don't have to report it because the government tends not to consider that. But if that item under $2,500 is regulated, i.e., say a magazine for a pistol, you still have to have a license. You still have to file. AES is just a means of reporting. It is not a regulation.
Isn't it nice to have a guy that has his own logistics company in here in the chat?
Yeah, that's great. I was saying you should be charging for that, Les. Don't secrets.
Oh, I charge for it. This is the one freebie for everybody.
Hey, just in case anybody was wondering, so the Iraqi gas mask that I have, I didn't find this out till years later. I believe it's a Yugoslavian mask, and there was a whole room filled with them. And the reason I know that is because I ended up buying a Yugoslavian gas mask from like Sportsman's Guide years ago, and it came, and I was like, "Hey man, this looks familiar." And I go to my display case and I look in there, and it was like the exact same one. So it was like the exact same, and it makes a lot of sense because the Iraqis had an AK called the Tobuk or something like that. Tubak, and it looks exactly like a Yugoslavian AK. It's got 3, gas port holes and everything. So there must have been a lot of back and forth during those times, and that's probably how they ended up with those type of equipment.
Yeah, the Iraqis bought a lot of things from a lot of people, and what they would do is they'd buy stuff from the Yugos, then not pay the Yugos, so then they had to go buy them from the Czechs, and then they wouldn't pay the Czechs, so then they had to go get it from the Bulgarians. The Iraqis had a bad reputation for non-payment.
You don't say.
Funny how that works.
Okay. Do we have any more questions pertaining to this topic? Because I know we had a second topic of conversation we wanted to touch before we ended this live stream. So any save rounds in terms of fighting over in Ukraine? Volunteers. Okay.
I think
one last.
Pretty good, bud.
One last, because my channel. What camouflage would you take? Because I saw something that the Ukrainians said that they encouraged you people that are joining their foreign legion to wear their respective camouflage from their foreign country or whatever. So what pattern would you take? Let's start with Doc, and we'll make our way around.
Absolutely the best camouflage pattern ever made, the universal camouflage pattern. Wait, Ukraine isn't a gravel pit, right? We're going to be fighting off my grandma's sofa, right? No. I would say in Ukraine, yeah, I'd take woodland. If I was going as a unit, I'd probably just take woodland.
Got less
multicam.
Bruce?
Multicam, because I've seen lots of Ukrainian forces using it, so it's a way of identifying yourself.
Yeah, this is not gonna make anybody real excited, but I'm gonna wear what the Ukrainians are wearing. My goal is not necessarily to stand out with my big American flag and my BDU uniform and my AR. I'm gonna plan on wearing whatever they wear. And here's the thing: depending on when you're fighting, you're gonna want a padded winter suit. And in the summertime, it gets balls out hot there. Also, and the mosquitoes are absolutely brutal. So you have to think about those things. You're going to want to dress appropriate for the climate, and it sways from 20 degrees below zero to 95 degrees in high humidity in just a couple of months. It's just going to depend on. I wouldn't plan on wearing one uniform throughout my entire service there. If I was planning on living very long, you're probably going to go through several sets. So whatever you show up with will probably be better off traded to a Ukrainian for maybe a hot bowl of soup or a cute little Ukrainian girl, rather than planning on holding on to that and try to represent in your country for as long as you're going to be there and have your stay. Hey guys, I'm just letting you know about my priorities. I'm an international man.
Yeah, I'm with Bruce on that. I would definitely just wear whatever uniform they're wearing. I wouldn't want to stand out either. So that would be my choice.
All right, my choice, and I say this not because I'm thinking it's the best or anything. I'm going to go with Les's train of thought with the multicam. I think it's good enough, but more important than all that, the the IFF purposes. Like, you kind of have a tan versus green thing going on there, and I've gone to enough one shepherd semesters to see OD and woodland at a distance to know that even then, even though that those two patterns have a distinct difference, there's still some confusion from time to time. So I don't want to run into that scenario. If I was going to be in those shoes, I would try to stick with the more tan based camouflage utility. So I would, again, go with the multicam because it seems to be those guys over there are wearing either multicam or their variant of the, like a Tanner UCP version. So that's my 2 cents. But all right, fellas, let's go into topic 2. I don't think I brought this up at all during the intros, so for that I apologize. I honestly didn't think this was going to go this long, but it has. So good on that. Topic 2. So recently, the president gave a speech, and he mentioned essentially regime change. The White House can paint it, however different they want, but he advocated for regime change of Russia's, elected president, a nuclear armed country in the middle of a war. And, it's kind of a hot thing to say. So let's kick that around. Who wants to take this first?
I'll jump on it. What the hell? Just let's keep with tradition. What else proof do we need to tell everybody this dude's got Alzheimer's? He is batshit fucking crazy. Oh my freaking God. I mean, it just, the hits keep coming from him. He calls for regime change. He tells the paratroopers in the 82nd, oh yeah, you'll be in Ukraine. And just one slip up after another. At this point, if Vlad is fully convinced we're coming to play in the game, who could blame him? I mean, words matter. And when you're the president of the United States, they matter a whole lot more. Yeah, the 5 of us can sit on this panel and pontificate all we want. Who gives a shit? We're 5 guys on the web. The president of the United States says something, holy fucking shit. And he is saying stupid shit, then walking it back, and then saying, no, I meant everything I said. I mean, being a White House staffer right now must be the world's worst freaking job.
Exactly right, Les. And that was my thought. I'll pick up right there. It was only a couple of weeks ago when you had what's the redheaded girl's name?
Peppermint Patty?
No, but that close. It'll come to me. Saki.
Jen Psaki.
Jen Psaki. So you had old Lindsey Grahamnesty. He comes out and he kind of calls for regime change. And Jen Psaki comes out and totally berates that comment, says that the U.S. has never had a position of regime change within Russia, would never support such a thing, that it was totally irresponsible for him as a congressman to even mention such a thing. And then old Joe, he must not have caught that press briefing because he's out there saying the same thing. I can't wait to see how they spin it. I know they tried to come and clean it. Look, here's the thing. I can look at this a few different ways, okay? From a political standpoint, we all know, none of us are politicians, but we all know that that's not something you go out on international television before everybody and say. It's probably not a good idea. It's not his first time saying it. Because if you remember, it wasn't that long ago, he made that little comment at the end of one of his speeches where I forget what he said, but something to the fact, let's go get him. Well, what do you mean by that? Now, surely somebody sat him down in the basement and said, Now, Joe, don't say things like that. We have a teleprompter for you with big letters that seniors can read. It moves real slow, and all you have to do is read that. Don't add anything to it. But he forgets that he's 200 years old, and he thinks that he's the congressman that he was in the 1970s, where he was pretty sharp, and he goes off and says things on his own. And so he's done it once again. I don't completely disagree with him. Look, if you've got a bad leader in a country, what's the problem with taking that bad leader out? We did it with Hitler. We did it with Gaddafi. We did it with Saddam Hussein. We've done it with many people. But when you've got, again, a nuclear armed nation that's at war, it's probably not the right thing to say in an international setting. Let's reverse the roles and let's pretend that Putin said something like that about a Western leader. Oh my God, he would be on every news station every day, nonstop, that Putin's calling for regime change under a democratically elected leader of whatever country that he called it out for, and a huge big problem. Look, all I can say is that if we can get through this and not get nuked, it's good for Republicans. That's all I can say. Okay, his rating is just going down. It doesn't matter. Look, you can feel sorry for somebody. You can say, look, I feel sorry for this guy because, he's old. He's obviously senile. He doesn't know where he's at. He doesn't remember things. That's kind of sad. We've probably all had somebody like that in our family, and you feel sorry for them. But at the same time, you can't prop them up to the level of respecting them as a leader of your country. They got to go. They can't be in power. They can't control that. So I guess I'm here in front of you guys having my Biden moment, calling for a regime change here in the U.S. It's time to vote him out and get somebody else in because, he's really, we've done I know we're trying to cover all the demographics here and we're trying to get all the different categories of people to be president so we can check those boxes and say, hey, look at us as a country. We've got everybody here. When he was first elected, I was kind of surprised at Democrats because I'm like, they are electing an old white dude. We've only had like 200 of those since the founding of the country. Like, what's the deal? Guys, we elected an old senior citizen and we can check that box now and move on to the next one.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just own it. And that is that I think regime change in Russia, while problematic because you do wonder who the hell is replacing the old regime, I think regime change is perfectly natural to want in Russia at this point. After all, Russia has for the last, 10-ish years or longer than that, it's been attacking its neighbors, threatening its neighbors and everything else. And now, of course, it's embroiled in a war in the sovereign nation of Ukraine. So it's very, very natural for us to want regime change in Russia. Again, somewhat problematic, but natural. That said, American government has demanded regime change. One in my mind is Saddam Hussein. But, the difference was that we had, 400,000 troops on his border saying regime change now, pack it up, leave to a, some kind of island where you'll be, forever sequestered. With all of your fancy toys and friends and family. But we did, if you remember correctly, the Bush administration said regime change. Again, the difference being that he could back it up. In fact, he gave him a countdown and then attacked him. All right. So my point here in pointing that out is simply to say this. If you're demanding regime change, have the combat power to back it up. And we don't. We don't have it there. We're clearly, he's saying, oh, no boots on the ground, all this stuff. Then stop calling for something that you can't enforce, right? So that's one thing. And then the other thing is we're like, yeah, okay, let's look at that a little more abstractly. Let's say, okay, well, don't we want regime change in other places? I don't know, Venezuela, Cuba, stuff like this. Yeah, we want regime change in North Korea, don't we? Oh, but that's not the same thing because North Korea isn't threatening its neighbors. Wait, what? It fired a rocket over Japan. It fired a rocket at Anchorage, Alaska. It landed in the water intentionally to say, hey, I can hit you with our rockets. If I can get a nuke strapped to that, Anchorage, you're at threat too. They've done this regularly. They've demanded the fiery destruction of South Korea. They've demanded the fiery destruction of America. They've kidnapped Japanese citizens. Okay, what do you mean North Korea doesn't threaten its neighbors? Well, what I mean is North Korea doesn't use violent military action against what? Since when? It's been doing it for 60 years. I mean, do you know the number of South Korean dead and wounded and captured by North Korea since, July 1953? Because I can tell you the American dead, wounded, and captured, and it's a pretty extensive list in that same time. And South Korea and Japan have suffered it, I would say, somewhat. Well, South Korea definitely much, much worse. And so the very notion that North Korea doesn't threaten its neighbors, doesn't take military hostile violent action against its neighbors, and isn't a nuclear power are all patently false. So why isn't Joe Biden jumping on the bandwagon going, regime change in North Korea? God knows they need it. They've needed it for 60 years. Why isn't he saying that? Well, he's not saying it because it's not popular. It's not politically, expedient to do so. And so this sounds like, while we can all recognize, okay, yeah, we all want regime change in Russia, or at least the vast majority of us do. Yeah, shut up, Joe. Shut up. Someone take the mic from him, please.
Yeah, this is embarrassing. Obviously, we can see how we've come down in the world from stunts like this. I keep recalling in my head that kind of meme video of Joe Biden trying to walk up the stairs to the plane and just collapsing several times, and it's really just embarrassing. Bruce, you're right. Republicans like Lindsey Graham said similar things, and of course, the world ended on the left. Of course, now we see the double standard yet again of, if they say it, it's okay, but if we say it, nope, all hell must break loose. The concept of a regime change in Russia has been an underlying goal of us going after these Russian oligarchs. That's kind of what we were trying to promote there. So, I mean, we're kind of putting all our eggs in this one basket. It kind of seems a little desperate. I'm not sure if it's going to pan out or not. Putin's got a lot of power over there, a lot of influence still, even with all this stuff going on. Not sure that's going to pan out. On the other side, I got to ask, why are we giving Joe Biden, who's obviously has dementia, like Les said, the guy's obviously on decline, any credence with this? He is batshit loco. It is utterly embarrassing.
He's got a history of making these type of comments, not just specifically about, regime change, but just like gaffes all the time. Like the other day, he talked about the sanctions were never intended to deter. Well, then, weeks before that, you had his vice president saying that the sanctions were supposed to deter. And other people in his, cabinet were saying that. His whole political career, he's made these kind of gaffes. So my question is was it intentional, or is he just speaking off the cuff?
Well, Brent, if you listen, the thing about that is that he has a recent history of these really bad gaffes. If you go back and listen to him speaking before Congress in the 70s and 80s, he was a lot sharper tack than he is now. Just don't even listen to what he's saying, but just watch his mannerisms, watch how he rolls them all out. There's without a doubt been a mental decline in his abilities from the time that he was that great senator and where he is now, more so than simply him just being older. The one thing about Joe Biden is that he's got probably thousands of hours of video footage of him making all kinds of speeches and arguing upon all different kinds of things. He's never been that bright, but he certainly spoke a lot better when he was 20 years younger than he is now. I seriously look at the things that he does now and the things that he says now, and it's almost like he's flashing back to an older time, saying things that would have been okay to say 30, 40 years ago, but not okay to say now.
Yeah, for me, the concern is this. I get it. I get that, when he took office with dementia. And so dementia isn't a fun disease. It's a terminal disease. You don't recover from it, and so, I feel bad for his family, but now I feel bad for the United States because Uncle Joe has dementia and he's in charge of the United States of America. But more on to the other point. Look, hear this from inside of Russia, right? You're sitting there, you're looking at Putin, you're looking at the oligarchs. Maybe you're an oligarch that's more favored, or maybe you're somehow empowered in one way or another, maybe through like the religious faith or whatever the case may be. And you're saying, yeah, what we need here is regime change. How am I going to convince this regime that they have better places to be? And, it's got to be a monumental task, particularly in war, but even in peacetime. And all the more so in war, a monumental task to say, how do I get regime change enacted here? I mean, Putin is the president for life, which takes him up. What is it? 2032 or 2036, something like this. I'm not making that up. He's now president for life. And it does have an expiration date. But if you want regime change, you're looking at that, right? And here comes some loudmouth cowboy demanding regime change. Well, you just disempowered anybody that might have been able to influence that inside of Russia, because now they are a Biden supporter, a Biden sympathizer. Now they're the enemy. And so by opening your loud mouth, you have disempowered any kind of movement that might have gained traction inside of Russia. You haven't empowered them at all. And so I'm just like, God, was no one thinking here?
Well, this is why we probably need some type of competency testing for the highest office in our land, obviously, so this doesn't happen again. I mean, Joe Biden has been on the wrong side of foreign policy his entire career. You know, I don't think this is as bad as who's that senator, the ex-senator from Hawaii? What's her name? The one that's in the military. Tulsi Gabbard. You know, she's out claiming that, you know, this is like, you know, a regime change war and stuff. It's nothing like that. You know, I think he fucked up by saying what he said. I don't think he has any intentions of enacting some type of, you know, foreign regime change war. But, you know, again, this is why we need some type of competency testing for, you know, politicians, so stuff like this doesn't happen.
I mean, okay, dude has dementia. I was going to say, you know, I was going to use some kind of like inappropriate thing to say, like, you know, whatever. But my point is, don't be a Joe Biden. And if you're going to be a Joe Biden and get elected to the presidency, the joke's on all of us. But still, have someone to vet you, for crying out loud. Vet your speech. Vet what you're going to say. Give them, you know, one of those readers, and don't let them vary from that. You just need
the problem, Doc. You know, he has prepared speeches, then he goes off script. You know, they can't keep him on script.
Cut the mic, for crying out loud.
That's its own. Yes, I agree, but that's its own set of problems too. How many times he wandered out there and said, "Oh, I'm not supposed to talk about that," or "Oh, they said I should talk to so and so first." It leads to the impression that we all know he's just a caretaker. And that's just as bad as image. I mean, there's no right answer here except to get rid of him. And, you know, I wonder what it takes, because you hear all this talk. It's like, oh, in November, the Republicans are going to take over. Yeah, they probably will. Anybody here think they're going to do jack shit?
No. And I'll tell you what, the problem with getting rid of Biden, and yes, we like the clearest example were the potty accidents of his later stages of dementia, right? And again, not making fun of it. You guys have heard me say this before. I'll say it again. My father died of dementia. This isn't funny, right? But you can see the clear signs of this. And you think, okay, whoa. We need to get a grasp on here. Yes, absolutely cut the mic. And by the way, when we say, oh, let's get rid of Biden, I'm all for getting rid of Biden. Do you really want Kamala Harris as the president?
That's his life insurance policy.
But at the same token, you know, it's trading one problem for that. You get rid of Joe, you get Kamala in there. Yeah, she'll be an idiot, but guess what? She gets to pick a new Veep. Maybe they'll force somebody who's, I don't know, seen the ball since the kickoff on her or something, you know. But just to sit there and say that Kamala is just as bad as Joe is still not a reason to not get rid of Joe.
Yeah, and you know, Brent is a bit of a YouTube sensation. I know a lot of you have been following him for a long time, since he was just a wee little one, but he's kind of a big deal on the internet now. And I bet you that if Joe Saki's not watching this right now, there's probably a big wheel within the Biden administration that is. And I'm just going to go ahead and make a quick suggestion. You know, we do this with music these days because there's no singer's worth of shit anymore in the music. Trust me, I got an 18-year-old daughter, and she sends me stuff that she thinks is good, and it's absolute freaking garbage. But what they do is they take these cute little singers, right, that can't sing, and they voice over all of that, right? And it's all fake, right? So maybe they have like a Joe Biden person who can mimic his voice, read the speech and record it. And then while he's up there going off on whatever he's talking about, they're just playing the prepared speech. And so even though his lips aren't exactly lining up with what he's saying, at least he's not getting us into a nuclear war with a foreign country. And then, when it's over, they pull him off the stage and the music plays. Listen, you guys are laughing, but tell me this isn't a better solution than what we got right now.
It is what they're laughing at.
I'm just thinking of all those Japanese movies when we were kids where you go, I will stop you, bad guy.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, it is kind of funny. I get it. You're talking about the president of the United States as though he's a meat puppet. And essentially that's correct. But I mean, essentially that's what you're saying. Make him into this like, face man meat puppet stuff. And let's put like, dubbing over his speeches. And I'm absolutely with you on that. Look, you know what, Bruce? People can get really angry about this and say, Bruce is just a real meanie pants. Well, Bruce, you're not the one that elected him there. You're not the one that put him there. You didn't back his party or anything else. They knew darn good and well this man had dementia when he was on the campaign trail, biting his wife's fingers as she pointed while speaking on the pulpit, for crying out loud. This guy gave every indication that he was entering dementia. And they said, let's put him up there. They're the ones who made him into a meat puppet. Now let's find a workable solution with him as a meat puppet.
My wife literally just came out of the back room and told me to leave that old man alone.
Okay, then I'm going to say it then. Sex robots for president.
I just changed my picture.
Listen, sex robots are fully programmable. Okay. They don't venture off script. All right. Now, granted, their vocabulary is rather small and they speak the same English words that I first learned in Spanish, which is nothing that we can repeat here. Okay. But at least they're not getting us into any kind of war. We could take that same programming, put it into a president and just have like a male robot version speak for our country. And it wouldn't be the greatest thing out there, guys. But
I just changed my sex robot picture for this.
Did you?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
That's too far. That's too far.
But fully programmable, like Bruce said. Now you want to see real, like, democracy representation. We get to like plan in and make recommendations of what the president says in, because they're just programmed. Why not? Why not? We can see an amalgamation of the Americana in a sex robot president, just saying what we want to hear. That's actually pretty powerful.
I'm gonna tell you guys, if we want to lead the new world order, we're gonna need some darn good cutting edge sex robots.
I think you're right.
Boom. Got it.
I mean, you got no argument from me. I've been saying this for years. People thought I was joking. I think sex robots are the way of the future.
And I want to point out that, and I'm glad you brought up earlier, Bruce, about the double standard, about the regime change and everything. I almost forgot about that. Lindsey Graham said that Putin needs to be taken out, and the left absolutely went ballistic about that. So I'm glad you mentioned that. But let's not forget, Biden was against the bin Laden raid. Like, how can you be against the bin Laden raid? Like, the whole reason we were in Afghanistan, we locate this guy and they come up with a plan where the SEALs are training for weeks, if not months, on doing this raid. And he was against that. Like, come on.
Well, as Obama has reportedly been said to say, never underestimate Joe's ability to fuck shit up.
And this really
a good point though, Brent. I mean, I do remember that, and I guess that's been a while back. But I kind of wonder, did he really oppose the taking out of bin Laden and now support the taking out of Vladimir Putin, or was he just saying that back then because it was the Democrat politically right thing to say? I don't know. I mean, I'm as confused as he is, but I'm not. You got me wondering. You got me thinking about this. Maybe chat can help out a little bit.
What you got, Chad? You were going to say something.
I was going to say this really boils down to the average American voter being uninformed about what's going on. This 2020 election was basically you had two choices: vote for Trump or vote I hate Trump, and that was it. It wasn't voting for Joe Biden; it was voting against Trump, and that's essentially what it boiled down to. So, thanks to all those people, those 7 million plus who put Biden over the edge there to win, then that's just what happens.
Such a great point, Chad. I was actually watching MSNBC today, and you guys know that I watch all the different news channels out there, and they were talking about just that. They said that you had this sort of one focus of voting for somebody that's not Trump in the last election, and now we're back to real issues. We're back to war in Ukraine, higher gas prices, higher inflation, all these things, and people are not liking what they got. So it was like that the spokesheads on MSNBC were kind of upset that now people are starting to look at issues that affect them at home and not who's putting out bad tweets on the internet. So I think that's kind of interesting.
Well, I'll go you one farther. And so let me say several things about that. First off, I'm one of the people that voted against Trump. Call myself out because, Chad, you called that exactly right. Did I vote for anybody? No, I voted against Trump. Okay. Trump came out and anti-Second Amendment. He was done in my book. That, yep, absolutely. And when he lost, I cheered. I drank a beer and I cheered. Now, having said that, let me come clean and say, not only would Trump in this situation with Ukraine be a better president because Trump showed very, very capable. I mean, he proved himself to be very capable as a statesman regarding foreign diplomacy. I think to everyone's surprise, right? He was very capable at that. And so he would not only be better at this, but I honestly believe that Putin would not have invaded Ukraine had Trump still been the president. I don't think it would even be a war right now because Putin and Xi would be looking at, China and Russia and would be looking at America going, we don't know what they're going to do. This guy is a cowboy. We don't know what he's going to do. And so I think they would have pulled their shot. Now, I can't prove that, but I'm trying to give Trump his due. Where I did not like Trump was on many of the more, domestic policies. And he certainly had strong things too. Like if you want to say, well, he was better for the economy than the preceding presidents, agreed again. But he was really against the Constitution. He was really against the principle of America.
I think it's important for you to know, Doc, because you're getting some serious flack that you voted third party. You didn't vote for Biden. Oh, Jesus. People thought I voted for Biden? What, are you crazy? I mean, what the? Honest, guys. Oh, my God. I'm not brainless. I'm not morally bereft. No, I didn't vote for Biden. Jesus Christ. No, I voted third party. Yeah, I always vote third party. All right, anyway. Well, we're about done with this topic, guys. We got any save rounds? We got about 10 mics left before we hit the 2-hour mark.
Well, I'd say if Joe keeps this stuff up, man, I hope somebody 25ths him. Yeah, Kamala's bad. But you know what? I'm willing to take the risk. Just saying.
I want to say
I'm a commie. Wait, why am I a commie? I'm like pro Second Amendment. A bazooka in every house. I believe in flamethrowers. You weirdo. Whatever. I'm a commie. I took a vote against. I'm like the most anti-Marxist person in the world. Oh, wait. I'm being called by a commie, aren't I? Oh, that is bizarre. There are several of them in here. Yeah, and it's a commie that's calling me a commie. Wow. All right. Well, you got that too.
I want to say the comment was made earlier about Republicans taking the House, Senate, and they're not going to do anything. And I agree, they're not going to do anything. But here's what I look forward to when Republicans take over Congress and Senate. I think it'll have an impact on our ammo prices, because the ammo companies might feel a little bit, better, and people might feel a little bit better that there's not going to be some gun legislation or ammo legislation coming down the pipe. So they might ease up on the prices a little bit. So I don't know. That might be wishful thinking, but I hope that is a byproduct of a Republican-controlled House and Senate. And they don't have to do anything. They just have to win and occupy those seats for that to happen.
It's a fantastic point, Brent. People always ask me, they think that I'm anti-Obama, but there's some things Obama did great. One, he droned the holy shit out of some people. And two, he was the greatest gun salesman this country's ever had. Maybe not intentionally, but he was nonetheless. So I'll tell you to what you're saying, when Republicans are in power and Democrats aren't threatening to take away our Second Amendment and limit our weapons and ammunition availability, prices do come down. And that's good for those of us that like to train and those younger generations that are coming up so that they can afford to train. It impacts the younger people much more than it does us, because we've probably all got a few $100s in our bank account and can afford to go out and buy 1,000 rounds of ammunition. Somebody that's 19 or 20 may not be able to afford that. So let's hope that the prices of ammunition will come down. I hope you're right on that. That's good wishful thinking, but I'll tell you that looking back on history throughout my life, it probably will come to fruition.
I'm hoping so, because I got my little man out there training, and right now he's using a 22, but eventually he's going to upgrade to an AR-15 platform, and that ammo is a little bit more expensive than the 22 rimfire.
I tell you, you just made a big mistake putting that picture up, man. You're going to be having ladies lined up at your house left and right. I know how these young little girls are. They thirsty.
What else we got, guys? We got 9 minutes left.
So someone brought this up in the comments earlier, and I had made this question in my my opening statement here, but this kind of ties back into the first question. What do you guys think about an American Foreign Legion, an actual Foreign Legion?
I'm against it. But I like where you're going, Chad. I'm serious. I like it. I would absolutely love to see more foreigners serve in the United States military for their green card and citizenship. Absolutely. Would I want them to be separate? No. And it comes back to those 4 things: training, equipment, logistics, leadership. They need the best that we can offer them. That means they're integrated. But aside from that, service for citizenship, oh, heck yeah.
Well, I love that Stormship Troopers kind of thing. There's service guarantees citizenship. So gotta love that. But no, a separate Foreign Legion, it's just something that wouldn't work for America. And I'll give you 2 examples. The French Foreign Legion works very well. It's a unit with great history. It's a unit of great performance, even in defeat. And then look to the south of France. Spain has a Foreign Legion, and it's not really much of anything. Has no great battle history. People aren't flocking to join the Spanish Foreign Legion. Really hasn't done much except occupy what's left of this little bit of Spanish colonies in North Africa. And it generally doesn't perform well. And generally, through history, other countries that have tried to have Foreign Legions, they're temporary units at best. It doesn't tend to pan out. And France's seems to work for a couple reasons. One of the reasons is most people in the French Foreign Legion are French. There's not a heck of a lot of foreigners in it. And the other reason, because it's separate and because it was built under the premise of who cares if foreigners die for France, long as it's not Frenchmen, it gives it a certain latitude. I distinctly remember as my son was learning French in school, we started watching French TV here on one of the local stations that we get in the Washington area. And they're talking to the French president about something the Legion has gone and done to this village in Côte d'Ivoire. And the reporter asks what he's going to do about it. And the president's quiet for a moment. And then he just replies with one phrase, "C'est la Légion." It's the Legion. and the reporters all hushed up for a moment. And then the very next question was what he was doing about low-cost housing in Dijon, because the French Foreign Legion gives the French government this kind of autonomy, because this is a unit not known for its egalitarian treatment of third world populations, and it's accepted in their culture and in their ethos of how their military operates, that you have this kind of band of, lack of better terminology, wild men that can operate a little bit outside the rules. The American public would never tolerate that. Never. You know, we would never accept the fact, oh, it's just foreigners dying for America, it's okay. The American public would not tolerate that.
Sure. I mean, you're right. Then you also have liability and all this. Like, what rules do they follow under, rules of law, the Uniform Code of Military Justice. There's all that. But I think you're also right, Les, when you say that it wouldn't be well accepted here, because I think it creates a caste society. And while we have social economic standards, we have levels of income. Yes, we recognize that. One of the things about, America's ideas and values are, if you're American, you're American. And so creating a caste is something that just gives most Americans the heebie-jeebies, unless you're a Democratic politician, Democrat politician. They love caste society. But right. Enough said there. But yeah, I just don't think it would work. I just don't think it would work well. I'd much rather have those people folded into the ranks. Someone asked, did they have to serve 10 or 15 or 20 years? No, I think you do your whatever the standard enlistment is. Your 3 or 4 years, and you sign your name on the dotted line to Uncle Sam saying up to and including my life. By God, that's exactly the kind of Americans we want.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, in terms of giving foreigners a pathway in to simply sign up and serve, I think that would be a great asset. I think it would be an opportunity for them to spend 4 years to learn English and get really good at it. It'd probably take them about 6 months to be pretty darn good at it with the right drill instructor standing on their neck. And pretty soon they would assimilate into the country of good American values, having served their country and deserving of the same respect as any of our veterans. I would absolutely welcome that. I mean, in terms of a foreign legion, I like the idea. I think that if we brushed on it in any way, we've sort of done it with like these civilian contractors that get involved in a lot of wars that we have. And Doc, I know you know a lot about that. They're not necessarily foreign, although some of them are, but where we kind of skirt the U.S. military federalist system to get people to operate in some of those roles, but to be able to not count them as U.S. soldiers should they get hurt, dead, or whatever the case may be. And I think, hey, there may be some room for a program like that for foreigners and Americans alike to go out and work in those roles. And at the same time, maybe we could extend some type of pathway to citizenship for those guys. But we kind of got to back it up. I mean, again, we can't be like, Joe Biden did when pulling out of Afghanistan and saying, hey, good luck, everybody, we're out of here. And they're going, whoa, but you promised us all this stuff. And he's like, hey, I'm a new president, I'm out. When that's your record, when you're doing that, you can't expect any more out of them than you're willing to give them. And if you're not, as a country, worth your word, don't expect them to live up to their word. So we've got a little housekeeping to do on our own first that can't change from president to president to president, but has to be written in stone. That, hey, if you're going to go out and you're going to give a few years of your life to serve, that just because a president in this country changes doesn't mean you're going to be left in a foreign country to get your head cut off and have your family chopped up. We got to do better than that.
What's your 2 cents, Chad? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, this is just something I've been thinking about. I haven't really come to any final conclusion. I've come to the kind of the same conclusions that Doc and Les have it, that there's a caste system that's created. How are you going to treat them if they get injured? Things like that. I think the system we have now, I know Brent, our last deployment together was 2010, 2011. One of my Marines was an Australian who was trying to get his green card, and they put him on the fast track to citizenship, and that seemed to work out. I also served with another Marine that was from Guatemala. got a temporary status, served in the military, was put on the fast track to citizenship. So that's kind of something I'd like to see. I know we had this discussion last time about immigration, and I think most of us agree that our immigration system as it is now is broken. As far as letting new people come in and stuff like that. So that's just something I was toying with. Wanted to see your guys' reaction. I haven't really made a decision either way. I think for the most part, yes, it probably is a bad idea, but maybe looking at the system we have in place, I don't know what exactly it entails, how you have to come here and get temporary status before you can enlist in the military, how long that process takes. Probably too long. But that's just something I was toying around with, and just wanted to get your guys' opinion.
I mean, from a fairness status, let's just put it this way. If you're a female from X country and you want to get your green card and then your citizenship here in the United States, the fastest track for you is, of course, to marry an American. And I have no qualms with this. Family's very important to any society, and certainly to the American society. Well, I have no qualms with it. That's how my wife became an American. So clearly I have no qualms with this. But the flip side of that is, well, a man can marry an American woman. That's true. That is true. But I just think service to the nation is just so remarkably valuable that what says more patriotic than I will become an American citizen through military service. Just fantastic. And again, morally, that's the kind of people we want, and we've all seen it. I like it. I support it. I'd love to see more of it.
Yeah, my 2 cents on this is I'm all about the foreign service in the U.S. military. In terms of a foreign legion, there's just too much unknown there. I mean, are there NCOs, are there staff NCOs going to be Americans, or are they going to be formed of their own internal? Well, at that point, you're talking NCOs, staff NCOs, officers. You're talking security clearances. You're talking a lot. And how do we? I mean, you can vet people, but we know spies and people slip through the system, so you're not going to be able to vet people 100%. You don't 100% know where their loyalties lie. When I went in the 2003 invasion, we had a Mexican national that went through the invasion with us. Well, guess what? We came back, and less than 6 months later, we're getting told that, hey, we're going right back to Iraq. Well, that dude went UA. He went back to Mexico. He wasn't going for a round 2. So it shows you where his loyalties lie. It wasn't with the country of the United States. He was there to hopefully skate through, however many years of service and then become a citizen of the United States. Now, granted, he went on the first deployment, but after he saw fuck this, I ain't going back in round 2. His loyalty wasn't for this country. Now, obviously, that's not the case for every foreigner that serves in the U.S. military. There's plenty of cases where they served honorably in foreign off, lands and everything else. I just think when we talk foreign legion, we're talking about a greater possibility of foreign infiltration into knowledge of weapon systems, security clearances. It's a very sticky situation. So I'd rather much go the approach that we currently have of, having them join the regular U.S. military.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we'll go around the horn and wrap it up. So final thoughts. Going to go clockwise. Skipping me to the end. Start with Doc. There you go.
All right. Here we are. All right. So we covered a lot of terrain here today, but it is pretty much all related. And that is, should U.S. citizens be able to join foreign conflicts? And my answer is yes. U.S. citizens, we should try liberty. We should try, yes, a very libertarian kind of approach here. And so, yeah, I think we should. In fact, our history is, there's plenty of examples of this. I do think that there are things that we need to consider as a nation that says, okay, in terms of magnitude, what does that mean for us? But if we're going to do this, where it has been successful, and I think this is the critical point, is that it has had either implied or specified U.S. federal government support. That these militia units, these private organizations, worked through and with the State Department, and often with the Department of Defense. And so when you start doing that, you start looking at issues of culpability. And so I think that there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. But nonetheless, my bottom line is, yes, we should allow American citizens to serve in foreign conflicts. And to the other issue that this went, and I would like to see us allow more foreigners serve in the American armed forces with a clear pathway towards citizenship. All right, that's where I am.
All right, so tonight's topic of should Westerners serve in Ukraine? Yeah, sure. It's called freedom. Go for it. If your beliefs side with Putin, you want to go serve with him, go for it. Good luck. So yeah, it's basic freedom. You have the right to choose to do whatever you want. Do it. If you don't think it's your fight, no harm, no foul. On our second topic tonight, the president's got dementia. It's sad now. We're crossing into the territory of elder abuse with what's being done to the man. He does need to be replaced. Sure, Kamala is no better, but you know what? She's no worse either. And I think it at least shows us as a people, if we can show the world we'll change up our leaders when they're batshit crazy, it at least shows that we've got somewhat of a clue going on over here.
So in regard to the first question, yes, you live in a free country. You should have the right to go fight wherever you want. I would just say, just be sure you fully understand there may be consequences. Got a Business Insider article pulled up right here that talking about a Texas man who's fighting for Russian separatists. He thinks there's Nazis in Ukraine. I've seen that comment over and over and over. There are Nazis in Ukraine. Yeah, I'm not sure they're following the tenets of National Socialism that was written in the 1930s and 40s in Germany, but whatever. Clearly, there will probably be some kind of repercussions for people who go fight for Russia. There maybe not. Who knows? If you want to go to Ukraine, do your research. You really need to find out what foreigners are doing over there. As for the second question, I think Les is right. Biden's got some mental issues there. I don't think, however, that he's calling for an actual regime change war like people like Tulsi Gabbard have been stating. Do I think conservative media need to latch onto this and bring his ratings down even further? Absolutely. Let's get something out of this. But let's be clear, Biden is not in charge, and it's scary to really think who is. So I'll end with this. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon. I tell you that, thinking a little bit about what Les was saying about Joe, man, and getting him out early and bringing Kamala in, it would only be for a couple of years, I think, and then you're going to have another election. And plus, you know what, the thing about that is we'd be able to check some more of those boxes of having a more inclusive country and more presidents that are more reflective of what's going on in this country. I mean, yeah, we've had a first black president, but this would be an opportunity for us to have our first trans woman president. So let's go ahead and get that checked off, get that out of the way. I want to take this time though to kind of promote my channel a little bit, because Brent was calling me out early for not having enough videos. But I tell you, I've got a new one I'm going to film tomorrow. I was actually going to do it today, but we decided to do the live stream today on carrying a firearm on aircraft. No, terrorists, this is not going to be for you. This is for legal American citizens to do it. I've had the opportunity to fly on several different airlines within the last few months, and I had experiences from those several different airlines. And I thought, why not put a quick video together showing you kind of how I do it, because I've been flying with firearms for probably 20 years now, 25 years. So we'll get that video up probably this week. It'll be short and sweet, but if you've ever thought about flying with a firearm and were kind of turned off by doing it because you thought it might be too much of a hassle, that's just what they want. And I'm going to show you how easy it can be. So check out the channel.
Bruce, how's that Gray Man video coming?
You son of a bitch. You know I've been working on that for like 20 years. I think about that video more and more constantly. But every time I get ready to release that Gray Man video, there's so much more I want to add to it, man. It's going to end up being a whole series whenever I do it. It may be something I do when I retire.
Come on, man. I want to see my cameo from like 5 years ago in it.
I got it.
All right, guys. So my final thoughts on going back to the original question, should Westerners fight in the Ukraine, whether that be Americans, UK, or what have you? Yes, absolutely. Freedom. Okay. If they want to go down there, no, the caveat, you're putting your life and or your limbs on the line. You're also sacrificing your family and anything else you got in the rear. So, you know, the idea to go over there, man, there's a lot of strings attached to that. You better have your ducks in a row, and don't expect a tinsel parade when you get back. Don't expect VA benefits when you come back. And if you end up with no limbs, well, dude, you got nothing. You got nothing. Tunnel to Towers is not building you a house. So, you know, that's my 2 cents. You know, with that being said, I am a proponent of freedom, you know, the choice to go over there and fight. However, if you are involved on the opposite side of an American conflict, i.e., you went to fight for the Taliban in Afghanistan, or you went into Iraq to fight with the Mahdi army, or freaking any other Al Qaeda branch, no, you were absolutely a terrorist, and if you were caught, you should be captured and or killed. So that's where I stand on that, obviously. So that's pretty much it, guys. Tomorrow, I want to remind you guys, I'm going to have Les with Pegasus Test on interviews with warfighters. We're going to talk about his service in the United States Marine Corps. He is a veteran of the Gulf War, so I look forward to doing that. That'll be tomorrow. What works for you, Les? 6:30, 7?
Yeah, let's do 6:30.
Actually, sorry. Can we do 7? I got something going on. I don't want to push down to the
Well,
end.
it's your channel, so you want 7. That's what it is, brother.
All right, guys. Sorry. 1900 Central tomorrow. Interviews with warfighters with Les. So that's all I got, fellas. Anybody got any save grounds?
Fuck Trudeau.
Here, here.
All right, guys. Well, that's it. Have a good night. Appreciate everybody joining on tonight.